I'm kind of getting a little bit interested in this kind of radio thing, you know?
Yeah. What is that anyway? That device that you have?
Well, like I kind of make, I record music at home for
Mhm.
for fun, you know. Normally I write a tune on the guitar and a couple of riffs or whatever, and put a drum beat behind it and bounce it out like. But I like about a year or two ago, I bought a synthesizer, a Behringer Deep Mind, like a proper synth. And I haven't used it that much, but I dug it out recently and started kind of messing with it again, making a few tunes, like, kind of, you can get some really weird, kind of creepy sounds with it, like, so, and you can do an awful lot with like two or three keys. You just push the thing and it goes off into another dimension, you know? So I was putting together a couple of simple tunes and I putting some drums behind it, like,
Mhm.
but, I started looking back into the synth thing, and I came across this company called Soma, Soma, and they're based. The guy is based out of Russia, and there's a piece of kit I was looking at made by Soma, which is a synth, which is it's not like got keys like a keyboard. This thing looks like a square box, and it makes some really dark. It's capable of making some really dark kind of ethereal, strange kind of soundscapes. Like so, I was looking at it, but it was a bit pricey, you know. It's like 600 or 700 euro odd. And but he had this other little piece of kit called a Soma Ether, Ether, which is about 100 quid. So I went and bought it. So what it is really, it's a wideband receiver. It's just like a radio is a device, for example, that hones in and cleans up certain frequencies, so you can listen
Mhm.
to a given channel. Whereas a wideband receiver just stays wide open and it picks up whatever's in the vicinity, really, whatever it's next to. So, for example, any electromagnetic interference, for example, if you put it up against your phone, your mobile phone, or your laptop, or a router, or anything that would generate a signal, it'll pick up a signal from it and turn it into like an audio, like a sound you can listen to. But as well, like if you just happen to be walking around the street, if you're walking past any like electrical equipment, or if they've got services buried in the ground,
Yeah,
it'll
it
pick up
picks that
a
up as
hum or
well,
whatever.
yeah.
But anyway, I was kind of just going for a stroll, just checking it out, and I was walking up the main street of the town as you were here not so long ago. You remember all that building
Yeah.
construction work, etc. And I just noticed this kind of pulsating sound, really, really strong signal, like so. Right up and down the main street, and I recorded it and I put it up, did a video of it of just me walking from one end of the street to the other, and I recorded the signal. So I don't know what it is. There may be a kind of everyday explanation for it, but I just thought it was interesting to kind of ask the question: well, what is it? What is it like? Because like most of the signal sources I found, you can very quickly identify where the source is. It's either an electrical, like a lamppost, or there's a electrical transformer, or it's a shop window with some electrical signage, or you know, you can very quickly identify, and as you walk past, it disappears. But what was different about this is it seems to run the whole length of the street, like, kind of 200 meters approximately. And as well as that, it's a pulsating rhythm. It goes wow, 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 kind of like this. like this type
Yeah,
of
so
sound,
there's a certain interval, a certain pattern to it.
exactly, yeah. There's an
Yeah.
interval, and it overlaps at certain points and drops, and then it meds together at other points.
Mm.
It's just really kind of a strange. Like as I said, there may be an everyday explanation for it, but I really just don't know. But like, it was against the backdrop of I don't know if you know that guy, his channel on YouTube, Israel Diego. Can't think of the rest of it. It's something like Israel Diego or something he goes by. But he does a lot of kind of he talks kind of stuff with, like for example, the recent London horse galloping bloody horse kind of thing. He
Yeah.
does a kind of an analysis on that along the occult lines and whatnot, and the potential ritual kind of meanings behind it. But he was speaking recently, like we've had this phenomenon off the coast of, in Ireland, and I think in the UK as well, this aurora borealis,
Yeah.
northern lights phenomenon, and uh, it's highly unusual down this part of the world to be able to see that phenomenon in the night sky. It wouldn't be the norm. Like normally, you hear people going up to northern Sweden or something, or Norway. They're kind of nearly inside the Arctic Circle. That's where you can see. That's why it's called the Northern Lights. But to be able to see it down here, I think is a lot rarer. I certainly don't remember it
Oh
in
yeah.
my
Oh
lifetime.
no. It was supposedly there was pictures all the way as far south as Central Florida of
Yeah.
of the aurora borealis, which is peculiar to say the least.
Well, the
Very
reason I
very
bring up
seldom
your
seen.
man Israel Diego off YouTube is he had a thing about
Yeah.
HARP,
Yeah.
HAARP, and I'll have to look up what the acronym means. But it's
I've
basically like
watched a few of his videos. Yeah, I'm familiar. He's done a few videos on harp. Was it
what's your thinking?
the high altitude? Oh God, I forget the rest of the
Here, I got it here. The
acronym.
High Frequency Active
That's the one.
Auroral Research Program.
Yes,
Um,
it's. I think it's something to do with the larger umbrella project of geoengineering, which is to um, control is to the extent that they can to control nature, to control this
yeah,
vivarium that we're in, um, and to thus mold it in such a way that is beneficial for themselves. Because the weather is unpredictable, and
yeah,
nature itself is unpredictable. So if they could taper some form of predictability, if they could program some form of predictability within it, it obviously it would suit their interests going forward. If they, of course, they desire a more algorithmic, predictable, binary, rigid system, as any centralized totalitarian system seeks. So therefore, um, you have to get rid of, or at least mitigate, the unpredictable elements within the environment.
um, just off their Wikipedia page, quote, initially HARP was jointly funded by the US Air Force, US Navy, University of Alaska, Fairbanks, and Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, DARPA, and was designed and built by BAE Advanced Technologies, British military. Its original purpose was to analyze the ionosphere and investigate the potential for developing ionospheric enhancement technology for radio communications and surveillance. And quote, HARP is a target of conspiracy theorists who claim that it is capable of weather manipulation, end quote. There's those conspiracy theorists are always getting their fingers into things that don't concern them, aren't they? Just they're so annoying, those damned conspiracy theorists. But anyway, that's
Oh, and another sort of a geoengineering conspiracy theory turned conspiracy reality was just recently within Saudi Arabia,
yeah,
and they literally cloud seed. In fact, they sell the service to rich individuals who I believe it's about $100,000 they can pay and have cloud seeding done, above their property within Saudi Arabia, or is it Dubai? Might be Dubai, and they can have a greater amount of precipitation within their area. Obviously, the government of, I believe, Saudi Arabia, Dubai, all of those sort of Arabic nations around within the Arabian Peninsula, they're all involved in cloud seeding technology, cloud seeding itself. That was a conspiracy theory, and now it's turned, again, conspiracy reality. They just had a tremendous amount of flooding, biblical level flooding there. I mean, so rare, it defies all logic. So yeah, of course, the Western media do not, they don't report upon it being cloud seeding technology. They call it global warming or climate change. So this is the problem. Of course, Brzezinski, within his famous work Between Two Ages, actively discusses the fact, and this I believe was in the late 80s or early 90s, I think, this specific book. And he discusses within that by the year 2018, governments of the world will have in their possession technology that will allow them to wage secret weather warfare against their domestic populace. He just nonchalantly states that within the book. I believe it's page 18, if I recall correctly. Yeah, I mean they don't really hide it. Of course, they hide it officially, but they candidly admit it within their work.
Yeah. Well, one of the areas of curiosity is the electromagnetic spectrum, and I kind of had to go back to secondary school physics class when I was busy daydreaming about other things to remember even the basics of this. But like, just as a refresher for any of us who've completely forgotten what that means, including myself, the electromagnetic spectrum is essentially from radio waves all the way through to light waves. So just if we consider that telecommunications and the harvesting of data is ongoing at present and is a part of the great work, as it were, then it would follow through that the electromagnetic spectrum has to be an area of interest, obviously, for the gathering, transmission, and communication of data and information, for the power structure. And like all these devices we have, the phone I have in my hand at the moment, my laptop, the router, all our Bluetooth connections, your key fob for locking your car, all of this stuff is communicating via radio waves. So it would seem to follow that there would be an element of concern from the power structure of extreme security is needed from their point of view around the electromagnetic spectrum and frequencies and transmissions that are happening, in that manner, including, for example, fiber optics, which is, you can transmit information via, radio waves, but also through light waves. So, like, fiber optic is merely another electromagnetic transmission. So, in one sense, it would seem, I kind of think that the average citizen, Joe or Jill, who has a questioning mind, should, you should throw this out there: software-defined radio that is sort of encrypted or digitized or has elements of, well, I might say, the old school scanner approach, where you had your scanner. I don't know if you ever had one, Silas, growing up. Maybe you're a bit too young to remember, but back in my day, we used to be able to have a radio that would scan police frequencies, the fire brigade, the local airport, etc. And I still actually think you can get the air traffic control on a scanner, but the whole point we're like kind of schoolboy hacking the local radio waves, like just out of curiosity. There was kind of no harm in it at that time. And around here, we used to be able to pick up, you could pick up the local police and whatever was going on. You could pick them up when they were talking to each other. But as time went on, they encrypted all that transmission. So suddenly your scanner was kind of useless. And the whole kind of hobby in that area kind of went into abeyance. But what has happened now is the gear has kind of leapt forward, and you can get a lot of equipment now, like a dongle, for example, for your laptop, which will cost you 50 odd quid, which will turn your laptop into a receiver for digital radio transmissions. For example, you can pick up local shipping, for boats are in the sea in your area, or air traffic, or whatever else it does. Or, for example, you can pick up another piece of gear on Amazon called a Tiny SA, it's called, which is a spectrum analyzer, which you can identify what frequency. If you find something, in your room, in your town, or a signal, if you find a signal, the Tiny SA will show you a screen graphic of the signal, and you can pick out what frequency the signal is broadcasting on. And just on a general point, like, I think it's an area of interest that any of us who have an interest in these areas and are curious about what's going on in the world around us should sort of try and brush up on, albeit on whatever amateur level you can do it, and try and have an interest in it if you can, because I feel like things like, for example, and this is heading into the kind of science fiction-ish / conspiracy theorists, fiction, speculation territory. But for example, take the UFO phenomenon. Like, we've an area, I don't know, Salish, if you've heard of this UFO triangle up in Scotland, on the border between England and Scotland.
Yes, I'm somewhat familiar with it. Yeah, I've heard of it. Yeah.
Well, the reason I bring it up, and this relates into the great work again and the crisis narrative, and building up to a kind of an arch crisis narrative. So it's basically propaganda, psychological warfare tool that could be deployed. So like the UFO thing, for example, like if you were to take it that the technology exists to project an image into the air that would take the form of a hologram, and to all intents and purposes, to the viewer would seem like a legitimate object in the air. If you take it that the technology may exist to kind of make that happen, it's kind of something that we need to be sort of curious about, how something like that might happen. So,
Yes,
because I think, go ahead.
Project Bluebeam and such. Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean the CIA. I'll try and find the quote. Actually, I'm sure it
Was
was from a.
Bluebeam a projection kind of thing?
I believe it was called Project Bluebeam. Yeah. Just check that.
Well, you can imagine the effect it would have on the populace. Like, if you take it, for example, you turn on your radio, and there's a speaker on your radio, and you've got long wave radio waves are coming through the walls of your house. Your radio receiver is picking up those waves, and it's turning it into a Tina Turner song, which is coming out through the speaker on your radio. So likewise with your TV, there's a signal transfer, coming to your TV, and you're getting an image, but you have a screen to kind of hold that image. So if you imagine that you had technology whereby you were able to broadcast the information to a point in three-dimensional space in the air, and somehow charge that space so that the image would take form, perhaps in air molecules, in the existing air molecules, or perhaps even in terms of just light itself, that it wouldn't even necessarily need air. It could take form or be magnetized or be coaxed to take on a kind of 3D form somehow. So, for example, if as a mental image, if you imagine a torchlight on a foggy night shining straight up into the air, and you get these little tiny particles of moisture are moving,
Yeah.
but the torch beam stays static and still. So if you take that as a really kind of crude, rudimentary image for trying to hold an image in space, that it might be possible to project this stuff. And also with the audio stuff, you got this voice of God weaponry, and allegedly that exists. And so the wider point being that the public, we may be looking at a scenario down the road where there's a huge event where technology like this, if it exists, may be deployed and would result in a kind of stampede panic scenario. But, not necessarily if people were able to kind of see through it. Pardon the pun. But, but it depends. It's a very kind of vague area, like, but there seems to be lots of whispers about it. Some stuff seems to be more than whispers. But yeah, I suppose it's what you might call dark science.
Oh,
Science.
absolutely. It's
Yeah.
exactly what the alchemists were dreaming of. Say 500-600 years ago. I mean, this is the type of technology that they were dreaming of.
Yeah.
Of the dark alchemists, people that were
Yeah.
seeking to bring forth psychological, psychic, even metaphysical tools that they could use to institute their own, and maintain their own base of power within the material world. Yeah, that's the quote there. In early 1952, CIA Director Walter Smith wrote to Raymond Allen, director of the Secretive Psychological Strategy Board, saying, quote, "I'm today transmitting a proposal in which it is concluded that the problems associated with the unidentified flying objects appear to have implications for psychological warfare as well as for intelligence and operations," unquote.
Hmm.
So I'm pretty sure as well they actually have the technology now where one can... I can't remember how they do it. There was a video that I watched that went into the physics behind it. But they can create holograms that are actually physical to the touch. They feel solid. Of course, they aren't solid, but they give the perception
Oh, okay.
of touch. So,
Well,
I mean,
see the psychological warfare kind of ramifications are huge, because like just say for example you are generating a hologram of a UFO. Like, why not generate a hologram like of a bomber formation? Like you could coax Western Europe into believing it was under attack, for example, from
yeah,
Russia.
yeah,
You could put the air full of Tupolev, whatever they're called, TU, those four-engined bomber aircraft,
hmm
turboprop aircraft. I think it's TU-144. I can't remember, but you could fill the air with them, and you could have a couple of fake bomb drops, and just you could have some actual ordnance in various locations, various city centers or whatever, and you could make the public go into a massive panic with very little, expenditure of military personnel or resources. If you needed to. So it just beggars belief what's in the shadows, what's waiting in the shadows technology wise. So, but that's why my comment, this is directed at myself or anyone else who's listening, who's ever had a passing interest in this stuff, is to kind of brush off and, I don't know, see if you can kind of get an interest in this stuff. Like that gadget I bought, that Soma Ether like I said, it's just a wideband receiver, but I picked up this
Mhm.
frequency, electromagnetic frequency. It's like a pulsating thing up and down the main street of where we live here. And like, it might be nothing. It might be something that's um, has a banal explanation, and fair enough. But the point is, you're trying to make your own little kind of amateur inquiries as to what stuff is or what's going on out there. What have they got? Or how would you even know? Like, how would you get yourself out of sitting duck status?
Yeah.
And
But I
like,
know their
yeah,
technology, everything, the way they express themselves is through their technology, and of course, like what you're saying, we don't actually fully know their technological capabilities, because to maintain the dynamic of power between the ruling class, the potentates, and the populace, they have to maintain, as we see throughout all priest class through history and ruling classes, they have to maintain um, that godly or divine knowledge that they have, in contrast to the populace, right, who are devoid of that. And that, again, that permits them a sort of leg up. So we'll never really know. They're probably maybe, I don't know, 50 years ahead of us. What we are seeing right now, they're probably far in advance of the primitive technology that we have now. Um, Again, that's not necessarily a leap in judgment. It's an educated, or it's just basic logic. They would have to, the ruling class, to maintain power, it has to have certain advantages that it holds that the populace in general do not. So yeah,
yeah.
technology is a way that they express themselves. It's like what Spengler stated. They're very Faustian. They're utterly Faustian. Um, they have sold their souls, and they seek to sell the soul of all of humanity for the allure of immortality and a sort of a singularity with technology, a merging with technology. And yeah, it's very peculiar. It's a peculiar time to be alive and to witness this.
We talked, like, about, like, we're preppers or whatever. You throwing these terms around, but I had calls during the week at work. Like, some of the work we do is construction related, and there's a lot of data center construction happening in Ireland at the moment, and we're talking big facilities. A lot of them are located around Dublin, but we've got a few coming down this side of the world. But I had cause to, this is in around the prepper thing. Like, and the point I'm going to make is that data center people themselves are preppers, and I'm going to back up what I just said, because I was talking to a guy who basically he works for a company that supply generators, and the generators supply electric power if the grid goes down. Right? So the reason I'm saying the data center people are preppers is that they have their generators on standby. They have a whole silo of generators on standby to prepare for if the grid goes down. And in the particular example I'm talking about, the guy, what was on order and what's on the way over here are, let me see, 13 generators, individual generators. Each one of them is a diesel engine that would essentially power like a cruise ship for one of them, and they're worth about 6 million quid each. And 13 of these units are going to be bunged up against the end of a building the data center building. And if the power goes down on the grid, these units will kick in as per the need for power. So it's all, decided by the computer. If they need 2 to kick in, 2 will kick in. If they need all 12 or 13 to kick in, they'll all kick in. So each one of these units fills like a shipping container. It looks to to the uneducated eye just like a standard shipping container, albeit with it's got some equipment on it to silence it because they're loud. You're talking like a big. And I think the power, I'm trying to remember what the guy told me. I thought he said 6.5 megawatt. I think that's what he said. But I know the rumor on the ground is 6 million quid each. So you're talking 6 million quid multiplied by 13, whatever that is. What is that? 700 million odd quid worth of backup. So then I was kind of thinking to myself, that's not a kind of a, that's a fail-safe kind of thinking, that they've built in an emergency contingency for their operation. Like, so they are preppers, like in that sense. But I asked the guy, I said, how are they powered? And he goes, oh, diesel. They're powered with just regular diesel fuel. And I goes, okay. And if they kick in, how long does and we saw the tanks. I saw the tanks. The actual entire container sits on top of the diesel tank. And he says, each one will go through the tank in 48 hours at full power, full consumption. In 48 hours, the tank is empty. But then what we found out is one of the biggest, if not the biggest, fuel suppliers in the country is on 24-hour call out to this particular facility if the diesel in the back in the tanks for these generators starts to dry out or is in danger of drying out or whatever. So that's what you're dealing with in terms of data, storing data, and the like it's a military spec operation that they've got going on, But
Oh, absolutely. They're engaged in a hidden, some could argue not so hidden, war against their own populace, ostensibly.
mm-hmm.
I mean, they have absolutely no empathy. They're relentless, and like what you're saying, they're totally paranoid, right? Or not so paranoid. I mean, they're acting in a purely logical manner from their standpoint for their own survival. But when we do the same, they call us paranoid conspiracy theorists, and we're on the fringe, of human psychology. We are, completely out of our mind when all one is doing is pursuing, like they are, their own survival instincts, right? So, for example, as we have now seen with the needlecraft in 2020, 2021, going forward, it's now, even the mainstream are now coming forth and saying there's something not quite above board about all of these needlecrafts. And I mean, that itself could be some sort of psychological operation to thus induce fear and perhaps some sort of intentional disillusionment or a disillusioning within the norm, the sort of normative population, right? The population are obedient. Who knows? But
Well, sorry to cut across you, to paint you a picture. There's an old TV trope, kind of archetypal, the mad scientist type character who's
yeah,
got
like
this
a
bizarre
Frankenstein.
there's this bizarre invention, and there's electrical arcing signals like lightning bolts and steam, and he's screaming and roaring, his eyes are bulging out of his head, and there's a time thing, and he's gone into a kind of a manic state where he has to achieve his his ambition, and the whole machine is quaking and shaking, and sparks are flying out of it, and it's going on fire and the smoke, and it's building up to some crescendo in the film or the TV show or whatever, and it's like one of those moments where the whole thing is absolutely going to collapse, or else they're going to get to warp speed. It's like she cannot take it any longer, Scotty or whatever. It's like pure mad scientist stuff. But like the construction thing here at the moment with these facilities it's that kind of picture. Like there's not enough personnel over here to, like, I get the feeling on the ground here that this is a time critical situation for them to build these facilities, and they are the actual sort of backbone of this entire great work, if you will, because the machine learning and the data it's a central, it seems to be a central point of it all, the technology, that the whole change of mankind, or the way man organizes himself, is centralized around this new technological age, and it is, it is the symptom of moving. Where are we going from Aries to Pisces? Isn't it? You know more about that stuff. The change of
Well,
the age. What?
we're in Pisces right now. We're going to Aquarius in the
Beg your
next
pardon. From
100
from
years.
Pisces. Yeah. So that's the great change. Am I right in saying that? I'm not too well up in that stuff.
Yes, yeah, you could say that it's a great change. It's
Yeah.
if the conspiracy began within, I say conspiracy, but the agenda began within Taurus, which of course is sort of a quarter turn from Taurus to Aries to then Pisces to Aquarius is of course 4. So that is a
Yeah.
quarter of the zodiac, which is peculiar to say the least. But yeah, it's the sort of 4 horsemen. We're going into the 4th stage, the
But
undoing of man,
right.
the coming spiritual rebirth after that. Yep.
But they've got like real world day to day problems here now about pushing in this network of facilities, in that they just don't have the people on the ground to do it. So, but there's kind of strange things are popping up in that guys, like for example, take your trade, seal fixing. And for example, you might be in working on these facilities and you get to know the crew who are building them. And next thing they say to you, we need electricians. And you're like, well, I don't know anything about electricity. I'm a steel fixer. And they say to you, yeah, but you know some guys who could do it for us. And you say, well, maybe, I know. And they say to you, well, look, if you get us electricians, we'll pay you, X amount per guy that you get us. So now if I go to your, for argument's sake, steel fixing website, where your company, advertise, not saying they do, but just for imagine, for the sake of the example, there's a whole thing on there, electricians wanted. So now you're recruiting electricians because they just cannot get to people. So there's like a recruitment problem. And you're getting all these weird things where people like who are plumbers are now looking for crane drivers and shit that would never normally happen. People who are, I don't know, in civil engineering are now looking for, they're advertising for, you know, crane operations or something that they never normally would do, because there's just not enough people. And like, it's back to that mad scientist kind of picture. He's driving ahead no matter what, and the whole thing is creaking around, and the building is shuddering, there's dust and smoke, and he doesn't care. Like it's a fixation. Like he just has to get there at all costs, no matter what. Like
Mm-hmm. Oh no, absolutely. That's the danger of this sort of Faustian drive that has taken over the ruling class. I think it's always really been there, but especially since the advent of the Industrial Revolution, there has been an absolute serious rapidity to it in terms of how it's developed, it's evolved, it's mutated. and it's become absolutely insane.
Yeah.
Like a rabid dog foaming at the mouth.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I mean,
And that.
there is no reforming this system. It's a spiritual rot at the heart of it. And the
Yeah.
problem is, there can be no mechanistic policies that, you know, you can put in place to fix this, even gradually, because what it is a rot. So not just within the elite, but within a lot of individuals within the civilization itself. Um, and to get out of that sort of Faustian nature, of which consumerism is a part of that as well. Um, Again, like what you're saying, it's a fixation. You don't care if the house is crumbling around you, right? Or all the furniture's on fire and everything. You're just fixated upon this one thing that's within the house, and you'll do anything to continue to be captivated by that, or to, like Icarus, try and reach the sun, right? The folly of it all. But it's a spiritual rot at the heart of the civilization. It's something deeply metaphysical, and you can't change it because it's not a mechanistic problem. It's something that's going to take some hard knocks, hard lessons learned, and especially if the ruling class, there's no reforming them. There's only
Mhm.
one thing you do if a rabid dog that's foaming at the mouth, and yeah, it's not certain. It's certainly not reforming it. You can't reform it.
The other kind of area of interest lately is this, like this body area network, the capacity to,
Mm,
firstly, to read aspects of the human body using frequency connecting frequencies, essentially, or reading
mhm.
different differences in frequencies around the human body to determine certain aspects of the human body, like where the body is in a room, for example.
Yeah.
Is it standing? Is it sitting? Is a person moving from A to B? Do they have their hand over their head or whatever? Are they scratching their arse? Whatever that they can see through the wall, essentially. And this, like, it sounds fantastic, but this is actual kind of normative science these days. That, like,
Yeah.
long wave kind of radio frequencies obviously come through the wall, because when you turn on your radio, you're getting the signal, right? So essentially, what they've done is they can read the standing wave fingerprint in a
Mhm.
in a room at rest, and then they move a human body in there, and they can detect the differential, the variance, and they can use the machine learning to quantify the
Mhm.
difference and read it. So the reading initially might be the position of a body in the room, but then it may be down to very fine, sort of minute changes in the frequency relative to the physical body, such as your pulse rate, your REM, rapid eye movement when you're dreaming, when you're asleep,
Mhm.
the movement of your chest as you breathe. The REM thing, they were seemingly taken from twitches of the eye muscles as your eyes move in that REM
Yeah.
sequence when you're dreaming. There's minute, minute muscle movements around the corners of your eyes, and they're selling this technology as a way, for example, to model and detect early medical detection for various illnesses such as like
Mhm.
Parkinson's or Alzheimer's, so that
Yeah.
just say for argument's sake, Parkinson's patients in the early stages have certain sleep pattern deviations, or have certain REM pattern deviations from the norm, or their breathing patterns are different, or sleep patterns are generally different. And if you hit these symptoms, if you tick those boxes, you're in the early warning category. So we're offering you the science to help detect that you're potentially going to at risk for this disease. So they're kind of selling it as a kind of a, when it suits them, as a kind of a trust the science, we're here to help you kind of thing. But they they don't tell you the surveillance capacity of it, obviously, But
Oh, absolutely. They never they will never mention, of course, because it's marketing, but they'll never mention the military applications for it, the applications for the control of the domestic populace. And really, all science is geared towards that.
yeah,
If it's used in a beneficial way for humanity, that is not necessarily the primary application or goal that was, you know, sort of predetermined within its development stage. It's that was merely a byproduct, right? The primary goal of all technology is to control the human being. But it's like what you're saying regarding frequency. Uh, this goes all the way back to alchemy and that
mm,
idea of the abracadabra, and that can
yeah,
be broken down into that tetractys, which
yeah,
is a sort of 10-layered breakdown of that word abracadabra, which forms the triangle. And of course, abracadabra means I create that which I speak. And then you have obviously the opposite of that, which is avada kedavra, which is I destroy via speech.
mm,
So it's this idea that frequency is the basis of existence, that is the waters of life, meaning
mm,
it's the waves of life, right?
mm,
So if they can control the waters of life, if they can, for example, with Neuralink, right? If they can
mm,
directly interface with the mind, if they can
yeah,
control the frequencies that the mind processes the thoughts into, then
mm,
thus, like any informational system, like any hacker seeking to control an informational system, you either control the beginning or the end node to thus determine the traffic, or to
mm.
alter or to engineer the traffic, to modulate it.
Well,
Um, even
that's an
Norbert.
interest.
Mhm,
Sorry to cut across you. Just
that's okay.
while it is in my head, I'm sorry to cut across your interesting point there. Is this Sabrina Wallace kind of type thinking that, which as your body is moving, and there's variations in a field of radio waves, and you can interpret those variations, but you all you're ever doing is touching the outside, if you will, of the body. Whereas the Sabrina Wallace thing is that the frequency can be used to penetrate the body. So, in effect, that you could get to a scenario, for example, where you could interfere with someone's heart rate or their body temperature by the use of frequency. But, a throwaway kind of comment I read somewhere during the week was that there was an arms race on for an equation, and the equation would be the key that would unlock that capacity to get in to manipulate the human being at that level. I'm sorry to cut across you.
No, you're completely correct. I mean, even Norbert Wiener, the father of cybernetics, within well, for example, his landmark work, human use of human beings,
Yeah.
where he discusses artificial sense organs
Mm.
being grafted onto human beings to thus control them. So it's again, it's always harkening back to the same idea, and we're just seeing the fruition of that now. Um, yeah.
Well, we had that thing. Like a lot of stuff that sounded like proper conspiracy theories are now starting to go, oh no, it actually makes sense. Like the Internet of all things, or of all things. Like, you have a lot of nodes in the system, which on a very basic level are transmitters and receivers. Like, for example, the phone I have to my ear right now is a transmitter and a receiver, and it transmits and receives at my command. but I have no idea whether it can be used to transmit and receive outside of my command. So essentially, what you have is a whole bunch of points, and it doesn't necessarily need to be a phone. It can be your car key fob. It could be a light, a public lamppost. It could be whatever, anything, a TV, anything that has that capacity to transmit and receive could be foreseeably co-opted into a, how do you say, a grid network for controlling frequency, for exchange of information, for monitoring, for surveillance, and for machine learning. And so like on this technological age, if you look at it, and it's rather kind of a dark way of looking at it, but it turns into the bars of a prison. Unfortunately, like in the wrong hands, that seems to be, well, one rather dreary kind of outlook, perhaps, as to where things might be going. That all of this infrastructure really is not necessarily good. And there's other terms I've heard thrown around that I don't understand or know a lot about, such as the Internet of Emotions. And like this kind of goes back to this machine learning and the use of frequency to find and record data. So, for example, human emotion, anger, hate, fear, joy, love, or whatever, all have corollary physical, recordable, measurable outputs on the human body, which can be sensed and learned from. So if you make a statement like you alone, nothing, and be happy, if the machine can detect when you're happy in inverted commas, or when you're showing symptoms of contentment and rest and ease, you can see how the whole thing is sort of can be manipulated over time. Because once you have time, you can adjust over time to kind of get more and more kind of precise as to where you want to guide the thing. So anyway,
No, absolutely. Yeah, it's this really underpin it. All of this underpins. I mean, the type of system we're going into. It's there's a book you should check out.
mm,
Called Burnham. I've just started reading it. It's called The Managerialist Revolution. Slight tangent, but I would look into that book. It does actually tie into what we're speaking about here, though he doesn't discuss the sort of technological aspects of it. But I would check out that book, the Managerialist Revolution. I think it's Burnham. Yes, James Burnham. He's an ex-Trotskyite, I believe, and basically this was written in 1941, and he states that what the Marxists were discussing as capitalist, or identifying as capitalist, was not actually capitalism itself. That capitalism, by at least by that point, 1941, the sort of onset of World War II, and at least by the end of World War II, had completely lost control. That we were in a post-capitalist world, but people didn't realize it. We were in
yeah,
a what he calls a managerialist world,
yeah,
world order.
which we
So
would probably loosely call globalist.
globalist, yeah,
But
absolutely,
managerialist is a good term because it has a corporate feel to it.
yeah. Technocracy, corporatism, scientific dictatorship, managerialism. I think all of these terms are most likely synonymous. When you look
Post-state
at
kind
them.
of corporate.
Absolutely. Post-state, yes.
But I mean, we tie it in with it's post-state, but then we tie it in back to Egypt, back to Akhenaten, Babylon, back
Mhm.
to those ancient kind of group of people, or at least
Yeah,
we find some lineage there.
I think that's what they were going for, all the way back. This type of, even Plato discusses it. It's the same idea. Thomas More, later on within the sort of high Middle Ages. Was that the 14th? No, it'd be the 15th, 16th centuries. You had the likes of Utopia and that, and Plato was discussing the Calopolis, the beautiful city within the Republic, and he outlines the dystopia there, which he calls he doesn't use the term utopia, but he calls it the Calopolis, the beautiful city, the utopia, the good place, right? And it's the same idea that they have this very simplified, rigid, almost extremely brittle, prone to, breaking, a highly centralized system where you have, a simplistic class structure that that the two outer classes act as sort of enforcer and servant classes for the apex class that is within the center of this holarchy, this concentric circle structure of a society. And I mean, it's the same. It's been constantly reiterated through the millennia. So you had, again, as I've stated, Thomas More of Utopia, Tommaso Campanella, the City of the Sun, which probably is harkening back to Akhenaten and Atonism, which was, on from its outset was a solar worshipping cult. And then obviously you have the likes of Aldous Huxley, H.G. Wells, Brave New World, and George Orwell's 1984, even H.G. Wells' Time Machine, and what's that other utopian novel he brought out? I forget it now. Oh God, totally forgot that. But yeah, it's the same idea, science fiction, and yeah, it's what they've always done. If they put things in either dialogue form, which Plato did, Thomas More, Tommaso Campanella put it in dialogue form as well, and obviously the contemporary ones such as Aldous Huxley and H.G. Wells and George Orwell, they put us in fiction. It's to camouflage it. It's to make it more palatable, to give it a greater propensity for psychological alteration or social priming within the body politic. And yeah, I mean, we're living literally the transitional stage to that, what was spoken of for millennia. Yeah, it's a very what would you call it? An auspicious time, I guess.
Did you have your doubts on the Northern Lights thing personally, or did you?
Yeah. It's especially when you're seeing them as far south as Central Florida. Though I believe the excuse was that the solar flares were what was it, equatorially targeting or something like that. So that's why they're saying it was further south. You were seeing it, closer to the equator. I never saw any northern lights myself. I was looking out for them. I saw none, both Friday and Saturday, which was a bit peculiar because I was getting all of these photos being sent through of northern lights, and yeah, it was completely dark here. I was even taking photographs thinking that maybe, the camera would pick up the lights, and
Yeah.
I picked up absolutely nothing. But I am assured that people were seeing northern lights in my general vicinity because there was quite a lot of photos being uploaded to the the Facebook pages, the local Facebook pages and such. But yeah, I have my doubts about it. At the very least, I think it was probably terrestrially driven.
Like a HARP,
Yeah,
HAARP type scenario,
yeah,
or
I think
a
so.
weather mod type thing, or what?
Yeah,
Projection.
I think they've got something big up their sleeves. And I think the likes of what we saw with the Aurora Borealis, or the geomagnetic anomaly that we saw on Friday, Saturday, and of course Saudi Arabia, if it's flooding, it's
That's
biblical
right.
level flooding and all of that. I think all of that is it's pointing to something that's it possibly will occur in the future. I don't know.
Well,
It
I
could
was thinking
be
in
anything.
terms of the psychological preparation. You know, like it's like you watch a horror film. Probably not now when you're a bit older, but when you were like a teenager, right? You watch a horror film like The Exorcist or something, or Amityville Horror, and you go to bed that night, and suddenly every single sound in the house is absolutely excruciatingly terrifying because your mind's been prepped. You get into that mode, from watching that film. So I think it's like a similar thing that they're constantly prompting the masses with this information. And as they're doing it, they're getting the kind of group consciousness onto a certain phase or level where it's more receptive to suggestion. So I kind of think, I suspect there's an element of that going on with a lot of this stuff, that it's not been done for the sake of doing it. It's done for kind of to edge them more and more into that kind of suggestive space where every creak in the house now starts to become a ghost kind of thing. You know, I don't know where they're like. I again go back to your. What did you think of Israel Diego's video? Did you have a look at it, or have you come across his stuff before? Or
I've come across this stuff before. I haven't had a look at that recent one on Harp. Though I've viewed videos from that Diego channel on Harp before. I'll have a wee look at it now. But
yeah, I think for what it's worth, I think the guy seems genuine. What does that mean these days? But I mean, that's my. He seems genuine to me. He spoke recently about the horses bolting in London. A few comments on that, and just I suppose his kind of line of thinking is more looking on the big ritualistic presentation of kind of media
mm,
events and mass events, and there's a lot of talk. What is I'm trying to get my head around is kind of vague notions of Prince Charles being dead or about to die, and Kate Middleton. I don't know. I'm kind of half follow. Have you any? What is going on with the royal family? There seems to be a lot of narrative
well,
about people dying or they're not dead, or Kate
mm,
is AI cancer reports or whatever. I mean, I can kind of half following it. Can you shed any light on?
I haven't really been following it either. I know that Charles has cancer. I think
Yeah,
so. Um, he's undergoing treatment or something. But it's quite funny because when he came to when he ascended to the throne, I believe there was talk. It was either some sort of Nostradamus prediction or something along those lines, or no, it was something in an old. Yes, it was something in a 90s fiction novel where somebody made a prediction that Elizabeth II would die in 2022, then he would ascend to the throne. He'd be an unpopular king, which he was at the beginning, and I think he would die or he would abdicate or something like that. Then William would take his place, which was quite interesting at the time. It's quite a far out prediction, though. With obviously his recent cancer diagnosis, it doesn't seem too far out. But it's interesting because a lot of them are seemingly dying or, exiting the world stage or, becoming grievously ill.
well,
It
I
makes
get the
one.
feeling there's a lot of, if you pardon the expression, bullshit, or like purposeful media manipulation around Harry and his wife Meghan. Is it
Yes.
that there's a kind of a, I don't know. I think we're probably living in the age where you need to control your own media, how you're seen in the media. That you control it. That at the top, it's now you have to control that narrative, or someone else will. So you have to manufacture your own public image, and you have to maintain it like a product, like a brand. You have to, there's various marketing campaigns, are your various stories that twists and turns your life. You actually have to fabricate them and get them out there. It's a way of maintaining a kind of a smoke screen between your private life and how the public perceives you. You just manage that kind of what's happening on the stage kind of thing. So I get a certain feeling of it. There's something weird has happened. There's some big change has happened in how they handle media. Maybe from it has been kind of orchestrated from the point of view of those types of people who are, in the public spotlight, or maybe as the likes of Diego would say on YouTube, Israel Diego's channel. That's more like part of some sort of a ritualistic tapestry or episodic kind of chapter based, moving toward a kind of some future event kind of thing. But
Yeah, so all
we
of it, all of these various events are. See, this is why for example, I just uploaded a recent one there, and people
mm,
say, well, the geopolitics is, it's complete hogwash. Why
yeah,
do you mention it? It's because it's the narrative. It's
yeah,
it's you've got to understand what is going on, um, in terms of the exposition of this narrative. Because if you don't, you won't really
yeah,
have an understanding of where we're going. Um, and
yeah,
all
yeah,
of this adds to it, you know. So
yeah,
yeah, this idea that, well, it's all phony, it's all fake. Well, yes, we know that. It's like opening a fiction book and then
yeah, 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 yeah.
remarking with the obvious statement that, well,
That's
this
it.
is this is all fake. This is fiction. Yes, we know that. But what's the deeper meaning behind the fiction, right?
Yeah, where's it moving?
Yes, yeah. And there can be truth within fiction. There can be deeper things to be gleaned from the pages, and broadly from the narrative itself. I mean,
Well, they
just
have
to,
to have an element of truth in it, like
yeah,
keep it
absolutely.
juicy,
For it to be believable, yeah. Yeah.
Incidentally, just in passing, we had a couple of days of break there, and we went up to Sligo to a place called Mullaghmore, and I was like, "Where do I know this name?" Like we just took a break there, Mullaghmore. That rings a bell. And Mullaghmore really is. There was just one hotel there, and it's a headland that juts out into the sea. And there's not really anything else there. I think there's a pub, maybe a shop. That's it. Beautiful little spot on the west coast of Ireland. But it stuck in my head, Mullaghmore. And we went for, let's go for a walk. So we walked down by the beach, and next thing we came to this little cross, uh, on the side of the road, and a plaque down on the ground, like an iron plaque with the lettering or stone or whatever carved into it, and it said something along the lines of, you know, rest in peace to all the victims of the troubles in Northern Ireland, the conflict in Northern Ireland, and then it said, rest in peace, Lord Mountbatten, and
Oh, wow.
a couple more names. And I was like, oh, it just dawned on me. This is where the IRA blew up Lord Mountbatten,
Oh.
who was Prince Charles' God. He was his, will I get this right? Grand uncle or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So when Lord Mountbatten, I think it was Henry. No, I have that wrong. I shouldn't say that. Let's just stick with Lord Mountbatten. Mountbatten was Prince Charles. He's now King Charles, right? When he was a mentor of his when he was growing up. And make a long story
Hmm.
short, there's a lot of the IRA killed him essentially in an assassination in, I think it was the early 70s, off the coast of Ireland. Lord Mountbatten has a house down there in oh, my head is gone tonight. Just where I said in Sligo, Mullaghmore in Sligo.
Mullaghmore, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
It's
and
Ben Bulbin's there, is it not?
yeah, it's
Yeah,
not far from William Butler Yeats's kind of place down around there as well, you know. But they blew him to bits anyway. They blew him up in the
yeah.
boat. Um, the story goes that Mountbatten had a beautiful home down there. Like the house is worth seeing down there. It looks like something. It's like Dracula's castle. It's very stark. You see it from the main road. You can see it from miles around. This thing sticks up. It's got kind of turrets and chimneys, and
Classy Bon Castle, is it not?
that's a classy barn. Yeah,
Yeah. I know
but
because Thomas Sheridan was. I remember just in videos. He was. I believe he stays up there, if I
okay,
recall correctly, because he walks around about Mullaghmore, Ben Bulbin,
yeah.
or I've seen it in a few videos where he's
But
discussed
the
that.
rumor was, and strongly rumored, that Lord Mountbatten was how like he was involved in the abuse of children. To put it
Yeah,
absolutely bluntly,
Kincora Boys Home. Yeah.
that's the one. Kincora Boys Home in Belfast, where they
Mm.
were basically taking children out of there and abusing them. And there was connections down to London as well, to Westminster, and
Mm.
the very top of society at the time in Britain, and I assume Ireland as well, obviously. So so whatever was going on, it just was interesting at the time. You're kind of going, well, how do you? It seemed very odd that you would manage to assassinate a senior member of the British monarchy as such, like, so easily. So I don't know. I had my doubts that maybe MI5 might have had a hand in it as well, and the IRA took the rap for it, or whatever, or maybe he was killed because to cover up for other people who were involved in the Kincora thing, or whatever, But just of interest that they murdered, they killed him down there. But
It, I think there was something. There was a little spat going on. I forget what it was now. There's a small spat going on within the royal family as well. I think Elizabeth took a bit of a disliking to him,
oh
um, because I forget it now. One of the little court power plays,
yeah,
but potentially that could have added to it as
yeah, it
well.
wouldn't surprise me. I mean, obviously down here the IRA took full, how do you say,
Oh
they
yeah,
took the PR coup. They were, we got him, and all the rest of it. But
yeah.
like anyone who had a bit more of a question in mind was kind of going, hang on a second now, how do there's this huge security detail around this guy, and how do you get a bomb onto his personal boat? Like, is there no search done beforehand or whatever? Um, it's a small vessel. It blew the vessel to bits. So it must have been a sizable package, like, something that would be not that easy to hide on a small boat, like, But anyway, they got him anyway. Whoever got him. So curious, curious stuff. But anyway, back to Israel. Diego, he's talking about Prince Charles. Some stuff he comes out with, like that he's already dead or he's about to die or stuff like that. Which,
Yeah, yeah. He's brought out a few of those videos. I'm just seeing, looking at them now. Yeah. I mean, it makes sense. I think he's going to die eventually. Eventually, sorry. Very soon. Of course, we're
think
all going to die eventually, but yeah, he's going to die very soon. Or
I'm
these
gonna
these
live
people might be immortal.
forever.
Yeah, they're lizard DNA.
No, we're gonna die. They're not gonna die. The power
Yeah,
structure is gonna live forever.
Oh yeah. Well,
in
that's their plan.
Balmoral.
Yeah, Balmoral.
Balmoral. So it seems. But back to the frequency thing, I just think it's interesting that the whole thing
Hmm.
is on the frequency, like, light and sound and vision, as your buddy David Bowie
Yeah.
sang about, sound and vision.
Well, that's
Uh,
it. I mean, frequency and vision. It's tied together. I I think it ties into how we, not how we, but how this essence that fills this vessel that is us maintains this negative feedback loop that is reality, that we are both the projector and the perceiver of it.
mm,
I think they understood that pretty early on. I think this, with the technology that they're seeking to apply to the human mind, I think that is what they're attempting to do, is to sort of tap into that negative feedback loop. That all psychological warfare is to provide perturbation to that negative feedback loop and to, in a way, attempt to steer it. Um, which
do you
is, of
think it's
course, mhm.
sorry, but to cut do you think it's possible, like, to directly affect the human body and or the mind with technology? I
Oh
mean,
yeah,
directly affect things like
yeah,
your heart rate or your body
yeah.
temperature, or what you think, even,
They
like,
can
literally.
probably they can probably do it vis-a-vis sort of simple frequency, sort of voice of God weaponry. I mean, we know they can do it because you have the DoD. I believe they're declassified now, talking about the voice of God technology that they were utilizing within Iraq. You know, even Agent Orange, they were utilizing geoengineering technology within the Vietnam War, along with
Yeah.
Agent Orange, to what were they trying to do again? It was they were attempting again, sort of cloud seeding. I think they were trying to drown out the Viet Cong that were in the tunnels. I think it's been some time since I've glanced at that information, but they were utilizing geoengineering technology there. So I mean, none of this none of it's a theory. It's all,
Yeah.
at this point, it's practically public knowledge. Um, unless you, again, you have your head in the sand. Um, you know, by essentially by viewing the media 24/7. That's
Well,
it's tantamount to that.
if you take the rumor, or,
Mm,
science fiction, it's a great science fiction kind of premise. That maybe it's true.
mm-hmm,
That there's an arms race for this equation that will be able to hack the human mind, and you'll have power,
mm,
complete power over your subject, because, like, it ties in with the modus operandi, doesn't it? That, they've tried. You have all these external stimuli to try and influence what people think, but, like, the
mm-hmm.
ultimate one would be to get in there directly into the mainframe and just get them to think it. Well, save yourself the hassle of a massive propaganda experiment. Like, but you're into something very, very dark, then, aren't you? You're into something. It's kind of serial killer territory, isn't it? I want complete control over my victim. It's like totally fucked up stuff. But
Oh yeah, it's just. But I mean, the way they view it, if you read, for example, "Survival of the Wisest" by Jonas Salk,
yeah,
and I mean, there's literally all of their various works that these people write, the sort of advisor class, and even, of course, the ruling class themselves. If they feel so inclined to write literature, they always put forth this idea that they are the only ones who care, that we don't care. We're just,
yeah,
zoom, zoom, consume. They're the only ones who care. They're the only. So it's not necessarily that they're psychopathic, though that is probably underlying. That's there. And believe you me, they will go to great lengths to maintain there is no limitation within their mind, put it that way, and what they will do, but they view themselves in purely moral terms,
Oh
right?
yeah.
They frame what they're doing as sort of a moral crusade.
Yes.
That we are too stupid to,
Profane.
we're too profane, we're profligates to really fully comprehend
The
how
mastery of the great work.
the mastery of the great work, how the species can move forward properly.
Yes, yes, yes.
So, I mean,
Do you
that's
know
the way
who
they frame it. Yeah.
oh yeah, do you know who I came across during the week actually? And I started reading one of the books, just the
Mm.
start of it. And it was a guy called, he was an early version of Noah Harari, Yuval Harari, an earlier version of him. It's the same kind of stuff as exactly what you just said there. But he was on about the great work and how the profane couldn't understand it, and this was the mission. And the guy's name is
Yeah.
JFC Fuller. JFC Fuller
Oh, I've
was
heard
a
that name.
British military guy. He was a Thelemite, Crowleyite. He was a big dude in the British military kind of thing back in the day, and he was the guy, if not one of the guys, if not the guy, who came up with the
Hmm.
blitzkrieg tactic for the movements of tanks and mechanized equipment across the battlefield, which the Germans studied his work, JFC Fuller. And for example, he's got a lot of Kabbalistic application. Like his theories around warfare, for example, there are 9 theories, 3 threes, and it's all Kabbalism, how it's all laid out,
Hmm.
how it's all kind of.
Well, it's the same. It's the same with just on that numerology point. You
Yeah,
have the 15-minute cities, which is 15 minutes is 900 seconds.
yeah.
Sorry, I cut across you,
Oh,
but yeah, continue.
what is the 33rd degree is the highest thing in the Masons, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, so
three.
I put it
So
in as a
three.
little dig in the little video I did on the synth device. I did a little finger tap test on the device, which came across on the video and on the audio. So when I click the top of the device on the audio, you can hear my finger hitting it going tick tick tick. But I did 2 groups of 3s on purpose as a kind of a hidden dig back at the
Yeah.
at the part that 33 was in there. Just my own little fucking private kick, like, you know what I mean. But anyway, yeah, JFC Fuller. And the book I've started to read it. It's on Kabbalism, and he basically discusses exactly what you mentioned there. That the profane, we're just too ignorant to understand what they're trying to do. We could never understand it, and they've been encumbered with the great work and to pull mankind forward into the new age. And it's, they're the shepherds, I suppose, as they see it. So they don't see themselves as psychopaths. They see us as dogs or as ignorant or whatever. And that's the way they see it. But yeah, back to the frequency thing. I think it's an interesting concept, sound and vision. So everything that's around us starts floating in that realm.
Hmm.
Then it's digitized, quantized into the zeros and ones. And then it's the machine learning. Um, takes from it and learns from it. And, you can see how it's an exponential kind of whirlpool of power inevitably occurs out of that. Like, but their gamble is that whirlpool is inevitable and can't be stopped. Whereas what we think is they're going to dangerously put the force of the universe out of balance, and some other extraneous variable is going to sort of be their undoing. It's going to unsettle the whole project, something that they haven't foreseen. Beating of the
Yes.
butterfly's
Well,
wing.
well, there's that idea as well. It's cyclical. I mean,
Yeah,
like Icarus going, through folly, attempting to reach the sun, and his wings burn off. and then he falls back down to earth. So it's that idea that the Faustian drive, the hubris, will take you so far, then you will reach an upper point, a sort of limitation within human progress, and once you hit that ceiling, you cannot break through, and you will fall back down to earth and burn up. But you see this. You have all of these sort of warnings within mythology of that human hubris will in human progress will always reach a plateau. Then it will, then descend back down into a trough. The further you rise, the higher the fall, and
Yeah.
you see it throughout. For example, look at Willy Wonka, right?
Yeah.
Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, that idea. Now, within that story, you see right at the end, Willy Wonka, the sort of Faustian archetype, right? That he is the weaver of imagination, the weaver of dreams, almost a Saturnian figure, right? Within this golden age of the factory, handing out golden tickets. And he goes into this elevator, was it the Great Glass Elevator or something? And it can go any way he wants, right? It can defy the laws of physics, essentially. And right at the end of the movie, for instance, it literally crashes through the ceiling, and it goes, up and up and up and up and up and up and up into the air, into the heavens, up to heaven. It's the same idea as, say, the Tower of Babel, right? All of these literary references are speaking either directly or in even a subconscious manner to this idea that human hubris can solve all the problems, that the human mind, that humanity itself can solve all the problems within the world, that the human itself should be God materially, not just in a spiritual sense, but materially.
Well, that was
And
Fuller's main point I got from the start of his book, that
yeah,
man is the optimum bridge between this world and God. In fact,
yeah,
that man is the centralized source of all. Everything is in man. So he very much made that point at the start of the book, that man is it, like the be all and end all, because God is in man. The world is in, everything is in man. Man is
we'll
the meeting, the crossroads of everything. So
see
therefore,
that.
man is the zenith. So that this is a real thing they have.
See, he's not totally incorrect there. That we are a bridge between God and the world, and I mean even what I'm mentioning regarding we're both projector and perceiver. But this is the problem, because you have that truth, but the way they then misinterpret it is that yes, man is the bridge between God and this world, and then man is both the perceiver and projector of this world, right? Through the essence that God gives him. But what they sort of misinterpret it as is that man, through that operation of crafting and thus simultaneously experiencing existence, is the author of it, that he is God.
Yeah.
So it's the distinction between God resides within us and that we are God. So they believe that we are God,
Yeah.
while I would state that God merely resides within us, that it's a sort of first principle type idea. They believe that we are the first principle. I believe that the first principle operates through us. Do you see? So this is the
Yeah.
distinction between the sort of black and the white of this esoteric, if
Well,
you will.
it's kind of that chaos magic thing, in
Is
a
yeah,
sense. It's because, as the fella says, it depends how you look at it. You put those factors down in on paper as a couple of points: God, man, and creation, and then you just spin around depending on which one do you think is at the top,
Mm-hmm.
and it's all a matter of perception. So it's like the chaos magic being that the consciousness dictates ultimately, i.e., what you think, what is. So, they're coming at it from that angle. So to them, it makes sense. That's their point of view. You know what I mean? So the point of view is sort of frames it like you can't, no one can see it in its entirety, sort of thing, super subjectively. It's everyone's got a skin in the game, and it's got a kind of a, as they have, it seems that they have. But that seems to be very much the spine of their whole philosophy and, raison d'etre.
Well,
It's,
that's the problem with it being the mysteries. So these people, the mysteries are essentially like a mirror. Our own consciousness, but the mysteries are a reflection of our own consciousness and the desire to know God or to know the first principle and to know where we are, what we are, and to a lesser extent, who we are, right? Self-knowledge. And the mirror, a bit like, for example, within the fictional tale Snow White, the mirror will show you whatever you want to see, right? If you have that mindset, right? If you have that sort of hubristic mindset, if you have that ambitious mindset, right? So if you look into the mirror with the mentality of self-criticism, you'll see failure or you'll see something to be improved upon, right? Like the sculptor looking at the unfinished piece of work within the marble. But if you look at the mirror as a sort of hubristic, vain expression of basal man, then you will see tools for power. You will see that everything is already created within yourself perfectly. That you are God, right? That there is nothing beyond you. And the spiritual is of no importance because unless it can translate into power within the material world. So, I mean, as well, that I was going to mention that JFMC Fuller.
yeah,
He also joined. He was a proponent of Crowley.
that's
I
right.
actually think he wrote some piece of literature or something in regards to Crowley. But anyway, he joined the AA. So it's actually the AA, and it's got sort of the symbol is 3 dots. I
What
think
did you
it's
call them?
probably
What are they called again?
I think they're called AA. But there's some strange symbols with them. I've posted it in fact, I'll post it in the VC
Is that
notes.
an acronym for something? The AA.
I think it is. It's been some
It's only,
time since I looked into it.
remember AE. AE was coming up quite a bit. Do you remember AE was? Hold on, let me just go
All
into
of their
this.
various degrees, they're all linked to that AA. So, for example, you have the Atlantean Adept, the Angel and Abyss, Arcanum Arcanorum, Arich Anpin, which is it's a Jewish Kabbalistic concept. It's basically means the long face of Adonai or Yahweh or God. I mean, some of the translations actually uses God instead of the Lord. So who knows? But basically what it denotes is sort of I think if I recall correctly, it's the higher essence of God. So it's within the Sephirotic tree, it's the Ein Sof and Ein Sof Hour. It's the hidden face. It's the sort of hidden aspects of the divine before the descent into the Sephirotic tree. Again, creating the lightning bolt, right? Which is where obviously Bowie got his idea of the Starman and the lightning bolt across its face. And where we get the idea of the waters of life and the waveform and frequency and all of this. Oh yeah, Astron, Argon, Light and Extension, Argentium, Astrum. So yeah, I think that might be some of the potentials
Just
for the acronym as well, or
I
the
have a feeling
degrees.
it's masonry, really.
Yeah, well, I think
Almost.
this was founded by Aleister Crowley, and
I
I
got
think
here
it's linked to the Golden Dawn as well.
the AA. This is from Wikipedia. Incidentally, it's written A, then three dots in a triangular form, then
Yeah.
the second A, then another three dots in a triangular form. The AA is a magical organization described in 1907 by occultist Aleister Crowley. Its members, here we go, are dedicated to the advancement of humanity by
Yeah.
perfection of the individual. That's your homo deus, isn't it? On every plane through a graded series of universal initiations. So the initiation is like a Masonic type deal. Unifying the essence, here we go, Buddhism, yoga, ceremonial magic, Kabbalism. The A is often held to stand for Argentum Astrum, which is Latin for silver star.
Mm-hmm.
However, there might be bullshit. Let's see. The name AA. It's obviously Argentum Astrum. Yeah, let's see. There could be a bullshit like a cover name. Not the correct name for the order. Astron Argon. Light in extension. Oh, it's got something to do with light anyway, right? It's always like
I think
go on.
I think it's founded on as well. What was it? The classic account of A is Karl von Eckharthausen's The Cloud Upon the Sanctuary, reissued by the A is Liber XX III or Liber 33. There's a
Here we
32.
go. Here's Latin.
Mm-hmm.
Latin is Arcanum Arcanorum, meaning the secret of secrets.
Yeah.
That sounds a bit more like it.
I think,
The equation.
well,
The
if you look
equation
down at the
for
bottom as well, you have the Order of the Golden Dawn, which had a similar, those three, has those three sort of triangular dots, which most likely refers to the Keter, Sephiroth, the Keter, the Hokam, and the Bina, which is essentially a bit like, for example, with Fuller's 9 Principles, which is a trichotomy, which is used by all philosophers, esoteric and occultists alike. It denotes the sort of mental, physical, and spiritual aspects of man, the tripartite essence of man. But you'll notice as well, you see the 1 degree, so the neophyte, the 1 degree equals 10 QED, I believe that's quod erat demonstratum, which literally means the sort of end, it's an end mark, it's to show that something's been demonstrated within mathematics, I think. So the 1 degree equals the 10 that has been demonstrated. The 2 degrees equals the 9 that has been demonstrated. It's very weird. I looked at this years and years back. I could never sort of figure that one out. What that meant.
Well, I see here one of the orders is the Order of the Golden Dawn. So I'd never realized that the Golden Dawn was in under the Arcanum Arcanorum AA of Crowley's and JFC Fuller's kind of. So the Order of the Golden Dawn is a sub sort of initiatory structure of the AA. Did you know that? I didn't know that.
No.
So William
No.
Butler Yeats, for example, was back to the Sligo connection, was a member of the Order of the Golden Dawn, the Irish poet, well, Anglo-Irish poet. So I never knew that. That was,
Well,
and then you have the Order of the Rosy, the
the
RC,
Rosy
the
Cross.
Rosy Red,
I was going
which
to
we
say that,
know
yeah. A Mork,
from.
yeah.
And then, interestingly, the Order of the SS,
Yes.
Silver
Yeah.
Star. That's a bit
Yes.
curious, isn't it?
Yeah. It was curious when I looked at it years back too. I remember seeing that and going, right, there we go.
There we go.
Here we go. 7 degree equals 4, again, quod erat demonstratum, or the source of has been demonstrated. Exempt adept, or adeptus exemptus. After one attains knowledge and conversation with the holy guardian angel and completes in perfection all these matters. This is very reminiscent of John Dee and Edward Kelly's angelic conversations and the Enochian language. The adept may attempt the crossing of the abyss, which is, for example, within the Hanged Man tarot card. The abyss would be the horizontal line that the Hanged Man's right leg dangles from. So the thread is like that of the cord, the heart, right? Which is where it's what cord actually means. It's I believe it's Latin for heart. So the cord, the thread that we hang from heaven is tied to the abyss. It's tethered to the abyss. So to cross the abyss, the crossing of the abyss is to cross into heaven. It's the same idea as, say, the Tower of Babel. And we'll get into that. The great gulf or void between the phenomenal world of manifestation and its noumenal source. The phenomenal is the material, the noumenal is that which is beyond the senses. It's the extra sense existence, or it could be even just that which is pre-existence. So God. That's a great spiritual wilderness, which must be crossed by the adept to attain mastery. Choronzon, now Choronzon was is the dweller of the abyss. I think actually now it's a term that was actually coined by Edward Kelly and John Dee within John Dee's memoirs, within their the occult system of the Enochian magic, and it was mentioned within John Dee's memoirs that they came into contact with this demon per se, and I believe Aleister Crowley, the demon of dispersion, he called it. Choronzon is described by Crowley as a temporary personification of the raven and inconsistent forces that occupy the abyss. In this system, Choronzon is given form and evocation only so it may be mastered. I believe, Choronzon, this idea of the demon of dispersion, if you think of the light, the source of light, the singularity, the singular point of the monad of light, right? Like the sun, it emanates, it radiates out, it's light. The zodiacal wheel is a similar example of this. From that singular point, disperses out, right? All, separates out all of its various fractal expressions, right? It's copies of copies. It radiates it out. So Choronzon is like Yaldabaoth in many, or it's an aspect of Yaldabaoth. It's that which separates, it dwells in the abyss, it's the begetter of the void. That's what Yaldabaoth means in Hebrew. Yaldabahut as well. The Lord, or was it the being of calamity as well, right? Disperser, that force of chaos. He is there as the final obstruction. If he is met with the proper preparation, then he is there to destroy the ego, which allows the adept to move beyond the abyss. If unprepared, then the unfortunate traveller will be utterly dispersed into annihilation, leaving the adept to become a brother of the left-hand path. If successful, the left-hand path would be like purely material, I guess. that of severity as well. Annihilation in this case, as it states. If successful, the adept, stripped of all of their attainments and of their self as well, even of their holy guardian angel, and becoming a babe of the abyss, who, having transcended the reason, does nothing but grow in the womb of its mother, Babylon. So you're like what we're discussing here, it's the total inversion, misinterpreting of the truth. Do you see what I'm saying? It's saying so they're children of the abyss. They're children of the void. They even say it there, the babe of the abyss. They want
Yeah.
to become the demiurge. They want to become the demiurge rather than destroying the demiurge. Rather than mitigating its force by theosis, by understanding our divine essence and joining with God, right, through that understanding. What they seek to do is to literally become the demiurge, to become the begetter of the void, to become the dweller in the abyss, to dwell in
Yeah.
the womb of its mother, which is Sophia or Babylon in this case,
It sounds like a type of possession scenario where
Oh,
they
yeah.
offer themselves up for possession.
Yep.
This is Crowley's words here, supposedly. The goal of the adept, it should never be forgotten for a single moment that the central and essential work of the magician is the attainment of knowledge and conversation of the holy guardian angel. Once he has achieved this, he must, of course, be left entirely in the hands of that angel.
Yeah.
Who can be invariably and inevitably relied upon to lead him through the further great step crossing of the abyss, the attainment of the grade of master of the temple. So it's all sort of about the evisceration of self, because it kind of makes sense. If there's some grain of sand of the divine in you, you must absolutely scoop yourself out, every part of yourself, to remove that which was divine and try and get, as we said before, to the husk. Then you allow this other form to enter you, like it's a kind of a total surrender.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, for example,
Sub-
there you
submission.
have
It's submission.
yeah, it's from the Arabic Islam. Yeah, it's submission. You see there the order of the SS, the Silver Star, Magister Templari, which is
Yeah.
the Master of the Temple. It is a degree there. Babylon
Yeah.
is on the other side of the abyss, so that would be similar to Sophia. Is on the other side of the abyss, beckoning in the sphere of Bina on the tree of life. So again, this is weird because it's saying leaving the adept to become a brother of the left-hand path. Then it discusses Bina, which is on the left-hand path. It's understanding. It's the feminine of severity within the terms of the pillars of Boaz and Yakin. Boaz is on the left. It's that which it's strength. It's that which destroys. It's like the Mahakali force, right? The source of comforting but wrathful mother. That sort of archetype. So beckoning in the sphere of Bina on the tree of life. So these are all left-hand path practitioners. If the adept gives himself to her, the symbol of this act is the pouring of the adept's blood into her grail. Again, this is Sophia. The grail is the womb. It's the same. It's the same idea. Essentially, what you're doing is you're reigniting, recycling, restarting, resetting, if you will, the entire narrative, the story of what
Yeah.
Sophia did. That Sophia, through her sin, attempted to be like the monad, the source, and to create through pure singularity, through pure unity, rather than create via dualism. So rather than bifurcating, she attempted to create via just, through pure unity of her own essence. And what eventually was created was the abortive um, um, sort of abomination of Yaldabaoth, the begetter of the void. He is that which is the Lord of the earth to establish this world, right? Now, again, these aren't physical manifestations. These are probably, like what we're seeing here, conscious manifestations, or even unconscious unmanifestations in many ways. But he becomes impregnated in her. So again, he becomes possessed by her, a state called Babe of the Abyss. Then he is reborn as a master and a saint that dwells in the city of the pyramids. Again, hearkening back to this idea of Akhenaten, to this idea of Philition, which, according to the Hyksos records, was he who created the pyramids. I believe Herodotus discusses that fact as well. A few other contemporary sources too. Philition is obviously a transliteration in the Greek of, the Philistine, the he who is from Philistia, or what we call Palestine today, becoming a master of the temple. And of course, the pyramid is a base of 4 with the apex of the 5th. The principal business, or again, the monument of man. The principal business of his grade is to obtain a perfect understanding of the universe. The Magister Templari is preeminently the master of mysticism. That is, his understanding is entirely free from internal contradiction or external obscurity. His work to comprehend the existing blah, 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 blah. Crowley also linked it with the experience he called Shiva Darshana, and with the 4 formless states of Buddhism, although he cautions against treating these criteria as sufficient for the grade. The city of the pyramids is the home to those adepts that have crossed the great abyss.
Yeah.
Having spilled all their blood in the grail of Babylon, they have destroyed their earthly ego identities, becoming nothing more than piles of dust, the
Yeah.
remaining aspects of their true selves without the self-sense of I. It is a step along the path of spiritual purification and a spiritual resting place for those who have successfully shed their attachments to the mundane world. The city exists under the night of Pan, or
Yeah.
Nox. Pan is both
Yeah.
the giver and taker of life, and his
Yeah.
night is that time of symbolic death where the adept experiences unification with the all through the ecstatic destruction of the ego self. In a less
Yeah.
poetic, symbolic sense, this is the state where one transcends all limitations and experiences oneness with the universe.
Yeah. Yeah. To beget is to die. To die is to beget. Cast the
Yeah,
seed into the field of night. Life and death are 2 names of a. Kill thyself. Either of
yeah,
these alone is enough. He's on about here about this night of Pan. Night of Pan really is like the Negredo. It's the destruction of the
absolutely. Yeah.
self.
Hmm.
And he has it here. The NOX symbolizes night of Pan. So according to this here, N is the death card in the tarot. X is the phallus. And I assume O is the kind of connection between the two. So basically the creative force and the death force kind of meeting, and a complete destruction of the self. But I remember that coming up before in what's his name, Steiner. Kind of similar kind of concept of eliminating the self, eliminating the ego self, and maybe the self of selves in order to attain the higher kind of thing, like, you know. But I just, as the fellow says, you learn something new every day. I never knew that the Order of the Golden Dawn was connected into the Crowley's thing and this SS. What are they called again? Whatever this SS Crow, but
The Silver Star,
Silver Star.
Argentium Astron.
But I don't think it's any great coincidence that we had the SS, Hitler's SS, in World War II. I don't think
No,
it's.
no, No,
No,
the Thule
certainly
Society and
not.
all of that, absolutely not.
Certainly not at all.
Um,
But NOx, if where are you on this thing here? Are you onto this Night of Pan? Have a look
um,
at some of that
no,
stuff there.
I was going to mention this. I'll jump onto that in a minute, but so we know Choronzon is basically a synonym for Yaldabaoth or the Demiurge because we see, look at
Okay.
this. Choronzon is deemed to be held in check by the power of the goddess Babylon, who Crowley later in life associates with the holy guardian angel, inhabitant of Bina, the third Sephira
Yeah.
of the Tree of Life. Both Choronzon and the Abyss are discussed in Crowley's Confessions. The name of the dweller in the Abyss is Choronzon, so basically Babylon is Sophia and Choronzon is Yaldabaoth or the Demiurge. It's but he who's not really an individual, Choronzon. The Abyss is empty of being. So remember, being is above self, it's above existence. It's almost like linked to God. And
Mm.
the Abyss is empty of it. It's filled, but in its place, it's filled with all possible forms, each equally inane, each therefore evil in the only true sense of the word. That is meaningless but malignant. In what is our world like today? That's an apt description for it, is it not? Meaningless
Mm.
but malignant. Insofar as it craves to become real. So it's similar to the idea of the monster from the French montreur, which
Mm.
comes from a Latin etymology which means to display or to highlight in a very obnoxious manner. That the monster doesn't seek to hide under the bed or hide in the closet. It wants to be seen. It's similar to a lot of the narcissists we see nowadays, right? Meaningless but malignant insofar as it craves to become real. These forms swirl senselessly into haphazard heaps like dust devils, and each such chance aggregation asserts itself to be an individual and shrieks, I am, I, though aware all the time that its elements have no true bond, so that the slightest disturbance dissipates the delusion, just as a horseman meeting a dust devil brings it in showers of sand to the earth. So it's this idea within the abyss, like Choronzon, Eya Rasha Eya, Yahweh claims that I am this I am, right? That's what
Mm.
exists within the abyss. It's what exists there. I am I. Yeah. Sorry, man. What were you mentioning?
This is the end, beautiful friend. This is the end. My only friend, the end of our elaborate plans, the end of everything that stands, the end. No safety or surprise, the end. I'll never look into your eyes again. The Doors. It's just that song popped into my head, as you were
Oh
speaking
yeah,
there. I took a face
yeah.
from the ancient gallery and I walked down the hall. It's like that. There's the disintegration of self and that
Yes.
destructive act between the mother and the father, the NOx, death and the phallus.
Yeah.
Uh, I don't know, just something that span into my imagination as you were speaking there.
No, it's
But
it's absolutely on point. Yeah.
but I don't know. When we talk about this stuff with Crowley and NOx and the SS and the Golden Dawn, is this them? Is it fair to say that this is the cult? This is
Oh yeah. Well, I
humanity?
mean, Fuller himself was. I'm pretty sure he was of noble stock. So
Yeah.
I mean, you can even look at the UN meditation room. It's the same
Mm,
idea. That black square, that cube.
mm,
That is literally what Crowley was mentioning there regarding Choronzon and the abyss. That's it. It's empty of being. It is filled
mm,
with all possible forms, right? What are forms? Forms are that which are angular, right?
mm,
They're that which exist within the circle, within the heavenly, right? And they're all equally inane. each therefore evil in the only true sense of the word. What he means by that is they're all inversions of the natural order. All of the forms are, because they go from the sort of smooth circle, the perfect circle, and with the sort of angularity of the box, you get a strange play of light within it and without it, in terms of how light illuminates it, right? Like the circle, that the light illuminates it in a much smoother manner. Illuminating a box is obviously, it's you'll only really get one side of the box at any one time, given the direction of the illumination of it. And furthermore, as well, that is meaningless but malignant. So it's I am that I am. This is everything that they're sort of doing. They're looking towards the geometric symbols that they use as well, such as for instance, we see within the Choronzon one, the lesser key of Solomon with the Solomonic triangle at the top. That's what forms the basis of the magnum opus sigil, where you have the generative symbol of the triangle, again, the frequency, and it encompasses the circle. It encompasses heaven. So heaven is thus colonized in a geometric, symbolic manner, is colonized by the frequency. It's... And of course you have the serpent as well, that just goes on and on forever. Yeah. The Knight of Pan. Yeah, Nox. It is explained that this triad lives in night, the Knight of Pan, which is mystically called Nox, and this O is identified with the O in this word. N is the tarot symbol death, and the X or cross is the sign of the phallus. Interesting. So that would be Hokmah. Yeah. Nox adds to 210, which symbolises the reduction of duality to unity and thence to negativity, and is thus a hieroglyph of the great work. Wow.
So give me that one again. Give me that one again, that last one.
So Nox adds to 210, which symbolises the reduction of duality to unity. Again, this idea of, for example, what we see with the hermaphroditic or androgynous agenda, and thence to negativity, or subtractive growth, and is thus a hieroglyph of the great work. So Nox is a hieroglyph of the great work.
Yeah.
There you go. There you go. You see it here. Finally, Crowley writes of the Knight of Pan in his 1912 or 1913 book, The Book of Lies. The first stanza named Sabbath of the Goat. And Sabbath, by the way, probably of course, links to Saturn. Shabbatai, Shabbat. It also links to Sabaoth, which is, funnily enough, in Russian, I believe the way they say, what is it, Lord God? Just going to, yeah, what is it again? Sabaoth. Yes, God the Father is literally, it's Lord Sabaoth, or Gospod Sabaoth within Russian. So God the Father is Lord Sabaoth in Russian. That's how they say it. And of course, Russian, Sabaoth was is a transliteration from the Hebrew of Yahweh Seviot. Yahweh, the Lord of the armies, or the Lord of the hosts. And what are we discussing here? Possession. So he possesses his host. Oh, the heart of Nox, the Knight of Pan, Pan, duality, energy, death, death, begetting, the supporters of O. To beget is to die. And of course, O links It's identified with the O in this word. I'm unsure what O means here. To beget is to die is to beget. Cat, yeah, you've mentioned this. Yeah. So there you go. Kill thyself. Neither of these is these alone is enough. Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
My God.
My God above in heaven.
Yeah. And the entire, we can only suspect that it's got worse since, the Golden Dawn days, that the
I'm
entire
just going through
ruling
one of
class must believe this.
Crowley's flings here.
Mm.
His muses, Muse Lilia Waddell. She was she's some connection to County Monaghan in Ireland. So when Crowley wrote the Book of Lies, Lilia Waddell was his muse. She was a so-called Scarlet Woman of Aleister Crowley and a
Yeah.
powerful historical figure in magic in Thelema in her own right. She was part Maori. No evidence. I'm just reading off the Wikipedia. So she's some granddaughter of John Crane from Coventry, England, and John Waddell and Elizabeth McAnally of County Monaghan, Ireland. It was in London
Mm.
she met Crowley. Took masculine together in theatre in London. That's where she met him. Book of Lies.
There you go.
Crowley
Waddle
referred to her as
performing during the rites of Moses.
a divine whore, mother of heaven, sister Sibyl, Scarlet Woman, whore of Babylon. He dedicated his Book of Lies to her.
Waddell herself was an accomplished writer and magician. In October and November 1910, Crowley started Waddell and other members of his magical order, the Argentium Astrum or AA, in his series of dramatic planetary-based magical rites, the Rites of Eleusis, which links to the Eleusinian Mysteries, or probably some revival of them, at London's Caxton Hall. Yeah, she also was featured in the Book of Lies, which
In
is what we were
19,
reading from there.
in 1915, Crowley stood at the base of the Statue of Liberty and declared an Irish Republic in a long and impassioned speech accompanied by Waddell on the violin.
Wow.
I wonder what that was all about. Well, I know that the Irish independence movement was largely Anglo-Irish aristocratic movement as opposed to an Irish movement. So obviously the secret societies and the Masons and all these people, if Thelemites, Crowleyites were in there for whatever reason. Maybe not for the good of the Irish people, but maybe they were. I'm not sure. Doubt it. To be honest, he probably had some.
Yeah, I mean, it's very strange. It seems almost like the American Revolution and the French Revolution. I mean, you had all of these various Masonic and occult overtones with that as well. But you see their sister Sybil, Mother of Heaven. So that's linking back to Parvati or Shiva's consort, and all of the various Mother Goddess
The Mass of the
archetypes.
Phoenix. Sure.
Anyway, man, I'm going to have to head off. That was a great talk.
Very good. Yeah, good chat, man. God
I'll
bless.
upload that one.
Shake the holy water. I hope you don't see Lord Mountbatten's ghost at the end of your bed.
I know. Probably right there with Corons on. Screaming,
And
I am I.
if you do, bums to the wall.
Yeah.
You could delete that last bit. All right. Good
Yeah,
night,
man.
man. Good night, man.
Good night. Take
Well,
it
you can
easy.
either have him or the ghost of Crowley. Take your pick, whoever you think's the
I'll go with
least
C, none
worst.
of the above. The abyss.
Good night, man. Good night.
Take it
Good night.
easy. Bye.
Bye.